Get the whole story.
With exactly 7 months remaining to the 9th August 2022 general election, United Democratic Alliance presidential aspirant Deputy President William Ruto and former Prime Minister ODM party leader Raila Odinga have intensified their campaigns over the last 2 weeks to woo voters from the former Western Province, that is mainly inhabited by the Luhya community. The vote-rich region has previously provided the much-needed swing vote to determine winners in the presidential race. Our senior political affairs reporter Patrick Amimo looks at intrigues that explain the scramble for the Western Kenya voting bloc.
Despite Amani National Congress party leader Musalia Mudavadi and Ford Kenya's party leader Moses Wetangula expressing their interest to run for president on the One Kenya Alliance coalition, Deputy President William Ruto and ODM leader Raila Odinga have persistently raided Western Kenya region to woo voters in their bid to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta. Immediately after the new year, William Ruto unveiled a 4-day whistle-stop campaign scheduled starting Monday. Ruto is determined that by Thursday, his gospel on bottom-up economic strategy reaches voters in the 4 counties of Trans Nzoia, Kakamega, Bungoma and Busia. 3 days after Buhungu 2 meeting, where a section of Western Kenya leaders endorsed Raila for the top seat under Azimio la Umoja movement, Raila met a section of teachers at the Emabole home of Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya and later attended a burial at Mautuma, Lugari constituency, where politicians present rallied support for his presidential bid.
The Western bloc, as a bloc, does not appear to have a very strong candidate who wants the job. The current one, the one leading, Musalia Mudavadi, appears like a good man, but he has no drive. Drive that you find in his opponents, Raila Odinga and William Ruto.
The Luhya are the second most populous community in this country. Therefore, their vote is very attractive. It's an attractive bloc. And the person who seems to carry the aspiration of the community is Mudavadi. He's only letting himself down. He's letting the people down, but that is, there is no politician who you can compare with Mudavadi in Western Kenya. But he's making people like Oparanya now take the stage.
The leaders from Western Kenya are looking at the Western voters merely as ornaments. They are not rushing to claim them, to have them, to bag them. What come may, it belongs to their basket. That is how they begin to lose it. Raila Odinga has realized this. William Ruto has realized this, that the leaders, the political leaders from Western Kenya, possibly don't have the wherewithal to grab and claim and have a control of that region.
Last month, Democratic Action Party Kenya, that is linked to Defense Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa, held a national delegates conference where Kandui MP Wafula Wamunyinyi was elected party leader. DAP Kenya supports Raila Odinga and is keen to cut to size Wetangula's influence in Bungoma and Trans Nzoia counties, where he enjoys massive following. Last month too, Dr. Muhisa Kitui registered Party of Growth and Prosperity, PGP. The party Secretary General and former Webuye MP Saulo Wanambisi Busolo says Dr. Kitui intends to change the name of the party to Sauti ya Wazalendo with the slogan Mbele Iko Sawa before officially unveiling it to contest the presidency.
The people from the Western region, the voters, possibly have got divided interests, divided opinions, divided focus. The people of Central Kenya have put their claims on the table. Their interests are very clear. If any person wants the vote of that region, they must be willing and ready to address certain economic interests, matters of development. When you look at the Western region, the leaders from Western region, whether MCAs, whether MPs, whether governors, or even the presidential candidates, they have not enumerated those critical interests. They have not put the demands on the table for anyone. When William Ruto is coming to Western Kenya, he is not met with the demands. No demands at all. When Raila Odinga is coming to Western, he is not met with any demands.
Patrick Amimo, KTN News.
It's definitely one of those regions that cannot be ignored given the kind of prominence it has received, the kind of attention this region has received over the last few weeks, the entire December, the entire festive season, from the top aspirants for the presidency. Wakili Nyaribo, a lot has to be said about this. It cannot be ignored. We've talked previously on this show about the kind of focus that the candidates were giving to the Mount Kenya region. They went to Kambani briefly, but 30 rallies in a matter of 2 weeks by the deputy president in that one region alone means something, definitely.
Yes. By the way, when you look at the many numbers together, you look at that, you go to Kambani, you go to the coast area, you go to Western Province, I mean, former Western Province. The Luhya vote is actually a lot. And I think they come number 2 in the nation. And when you look at their problem is inability to bond, inability to stand together. I think the Luhya as a nation, their leaders, all have very good intentions. If they could manage to sit around the table and agree that, okay, we now will go left or we will go right, that will help them. So their major problem is the unwillingness to sit down. Here comes the Atuoli, then tomorrow we have Mudavadi, now there was Mukhisa Kitui just the other day. And these are all brilliant gentlemen, by the way, if you ask me. But they cannot agree to sit together, and that is what tends to, you know, punish the Luhya as a nation. So you see today, Mudavadi will say, I have gone to meet Raila Odinga, and then another day I want to speak to Kalonzo Musyoka, and then another day I want to speak to William Ruto. And then he comes to national television and says, you cannot stop me from where I want to go and have, you know, discussions. There is no time. Here is August is coming, and people need to make a decision. It's better if you stand together as a Luhya nation and take your numbers to a particular basket. That is what will make them strong. But failure to do that, you know, gives opportunity to everybody to, you know, steal a few, 300,000 votes here, another 500, another, you know, and then it makes them inconsequential. So I think, if you ask me, Fred, really they should stand together and decide. We want to support William Ruto. That is okay, but they should stand. All of them as a nation, I mean, as a Luhya community. That's what will help them. Yes.
We have Wakili Echesa coming to us from Kakamega. He definitely understands what's going on in that region right now. Echesa, listening to that story, one of the pundits there said that no one in Western Kenya looks like they want the job. Do you think that is one of the biggest problems we have, that no one seems interested in the top job from that region? They indicate weekly that yes, we may run for president, but it doesn't appear that they really want the job.
It is true, and the statement by the pundits was on point. In Western Kenya today, the people who are threatening to run for presidency have been doing so for the past 15 or so years. Talk of Musalia Mudavadi, talk of Moses Wetangula. These are people who have shown interest, or who have some interest, and that is all they have. They have not taken any positive step to demonstrate, beyond showing interest, that they are actually presidential candidates. They are not presidential materials. Look at the kind of an alliance that the so-called Luhya leaders have been angling for, the One Kenya Alliance. This is the only alliance which under law ought to be declared unconstitutional. It has 4 Luhya principles. They admitted Marende, I think, last week in their last press conference. They have Marende from Vihiga, they have Jirongo from Kakamega, they have Musalia from Vihiga, they have Wetangula from Bungoma. And then the only people who are making the alliance look like something serious is Kalonzo Musyoka and Gideon Moi. Very objective gentlemen who will make informed political decisions at the right time. But come to think of it, the competition for Western Kenya and the Luhya vote is between 2 gentlemen. One William Ruto and Raila Amolo Odinga. One of the 2 gentlemen is an investor who is having more than 30 rallies in a month in one community. That is William Ruto, investing heavily in the Luhya political basket. One leader is a shareholder in the politics of the Luhya nation. Raila Odinga has attained shares over time. You go to Busia, Busia has traditionally been an orange zone. You go to Vihiga, the county of Vihiga has Luanda and Mohaya, which are traditionally Odinga's support base. You come to Kakamega, because of Wycliffe Ambesa Oparanya and his efforts in not just developing the county, but also the progressive politics he has been playing, has shifted towards Raila Odinga. When you go to Bungoma and Trans Nzoia, Moses Wetangula has leased his political players to William Ruto. That is Chris Wamalwa, the party SG, and Majimbo Kalasinga, MP for Kabuchai. And the democratic emergence of Democratic Action Party has vanquished Ford Kenya completely in Trans Nzoia and in Bungoma counties. And that is coming in handy in the counties of Vihiga, counties of Busia, and county of Kakamega, where ODM may not be very receptive, where people are not receiving ODM very positively, and they want a homegrown party. What I'm trying to say is that the emergence of Democratic Action Party in the Western Kenya politics has drastically changed the political equation and boosted Raila Odinga's chances. Remember, the indecision by Moses Wetangula and Musalia Mudavadi had opened up the ground for William Ruto, and people who are looking forward to having a presidential candidate were warming up to Ruto. But when Eugene Wamalwa, Wafula Wamunyinyi, and Eseli Simiyu filled the gap by rejuvenating Democratic Action Party, the few votes that would have gone the William Ruto way are now going back to Azimio through Democratic Action Party. It is very late. We cannot raise a serious presidential candidate as the Mlembe Nation in the next 7 months. The painful decision that the community will make will be to either back Raila Odinga for the 4th time or back William Ruto. And in whose hands is the Western vote safe? In whose hands are the Luhya aspirations safe? Okay. It is Raila Amolo Odinga, and the past history has demonstrated.
Okay, Wakili Chesa, definitely. Okay, just before he made that last comment, he made a very comprehensive assessment of the political layout in Western Kenya, and I don't think anyone else on this panel can match that currently or add anything much. But in comparison to the kind of focus given to Mount Kenya region, the kind of promises, the kind of expectations, Mount Kenya even came out with demands. The leaders came out and said, some were even talking about the number of positions expected in cabinet, if at all they are to play ball, the fact that any running mate should come from that area. But when it comes to Western Kenya, Hezbon, what kind of promises will they get? Because yes, even if they attract ANC as a party or Musalia Mudavadi as a leader or Moses Wetangula, what kind of promise can they expect, or are they being offered?
Well, I think to a very large extent, Western is agrarian. And I think the bulk of the industries that we have in the Western region rely on agricultural produce. And winning the Western vote basically means that any presidential candidate has to attend to the issues of Mumias, the issues of sugarcane farmers. And I think it is not right to say that Western leaders have not articulated what they want. They have. The reality of the matter, from where I say it, is that Western Kenya is the only region where we tend to believe there is one homogeneous tribe which has so many other sub-tribes. And the reality of the ground is, and I like comparing the Western region and China, because China is one country with 2 major linguistic communities, the Mandarins and the Cantonese. But what China has done deliberately is to forge a nationalistic China. So much so that these 2 languages that are not mutually intelligible are assumed to be one language, and they've made an effort. But what happens in Western is very simple. We are talking about the Luhya nation. There is no Luhya nation, absolutely. There are so many other nations within the Luhya nations. And there is a lot of infighting and processes of disengaging from the larger Luhya bloc. You may want to say that that is a lot more democratic because there's a bit of dissent in there, and it's good for a democracy. So there are pockets of different sub-tribes of the Luhya nation that have actually articulated their issues. Every time political leaders have gone to Kakamega, for instance, and it has a number of sub-tribes, I think they've articulated what they want, and for them it has always been a question of how do we address the economic activities through the agriculture and specifically the Mumias sugar. And when Chesa talks about Raila has, stakes in the Luhya politics. You can actually see, because he has not necessarily gone there to listen to them. He has gone with solutions. The last time Azimio had a rally there, I think we saw some very proactive, solutions in terms of addressing the plight of the sugarcane farmers. But from where I see it, I think that differentiation along the sub-tribes has been the main undoing. And Chesa rightly says, I mean, we have Oka that has 4 principles from the Luhya nations. On paper, you're saying that these are principles from the Luhya nations. No, these are principles from the sub-tribes, So you have the Bukusu, you have the folks from Kakamega, you have the Tiriki, you have the Maragolis as principles. And don't forget that even outside Oka, they also have the Lone Ranger in the name of Mukisa Kitui. They have another powerhouse in the name of Francis Atuoli. And there are so many in this coalition, I mean in different parts of the coalition, that it becomes a lot more difficult to say that they can, speak with one voice. But there are certainly so many voices. The other critical thing that Chess has raised is the issue of DAP. And I think DAP, if you look at it critically, it's again one sub-tribe in the western region that is fairly big, one of the biggest, Bukusu, has just disintegrated. That now we have the Ford Kenya, angle, and then we have the DAP angle. And simply put, the DAP angle is now trying to clip whatever Ford Kenya might end up with and take it to Azimio. And for me, instead of, angling around, can they have a serious presidential candidate? We need to start asking ourselves that the reason why most politicians make trips to the western region is because these are the only voters in this country who tend to look like they can vote for people who speak to them. Not necessarily balkanize them into one block and say, we have Luhya in the bag. So the deputy president will keep going, because if he goes to Bungoma, if he goes to Trans Nzoia, there are people in Trans Nzoia who will vote for him. Raila will go because there are people who will vote for him. Whether Wetangula likes it or not, he cannot put the Bukusus in one basket and then expect the Bukusus, the Wangas, and all that to vote the same way. They will not. And that's why there will be so many trips. Now, unlike the West, the Mount Kenya region, you look at the Mount Kenya region, and whether we like it or not, we know that the Mount Kenya region has almost 8 million, rich voters. But then, the reason why people cannot make so many trips into the mountain region as compared to the western region is because at the end of the day, we know they have a principal spokesman who will lead them into the direction that they are going to take. So they don't need much convincing from an outsider, because they can have that conversation with someone who listens to them from within. And from where I sit, I think the day President Uhuru Kenyatta will make it clear what direction the mountain will go, all the major players will try and angle around what President Uhuru Kenyatta will want.
Do you think, Dismas, that if at all one of the major presidential candidates opted to pick a running mate from the Western Kenya region, that it could actually work in as far as galvanizing that voting bloc to vote into one? Of course, Hezbollah has clearly put it that it is not necessarily a Luhya nation. There are so many subdivisions within it.
Well, probability of that being a success is almost zero, because if you look at say you look at Musalia Mudavadi, and if somebody wants to pick him as a running mate, that will be either Ruto or Raila Odinga. And their homes are about 50 kilometers away if you go to the village level. So probability of anybody picking them as a running mate is almost zero. But now addressing the issue you've asked with laser beam attention, when you talk about One Kenya Alliance, it's disingenuous for a member of the panel to say that Marende is a principal, because the One Kenya Alliance principles are party leaders. So if you've got a party, you join it, then you become a party leader. For instance, a few days ago, we were told that Muturi is going to be one of the principals. Then we've also been told that about the Mount Kenya Unity Forum, they're joining them. So in as much as we are on talking points of specific political parties, we should try to be honest to the viewer. We shouldn't use this program for propaganda purposes. Now, Raila Odinga and Ruto are very clever politicians, and they've made trips, many trips to Western Kenya, and Ruto has been asking Musalia Mudavadi and Wetangula to join him. And he's made an exception that if you want us to work together, I'm open to forming a coalition. So there's no way Ruto would be seeking to work with Musalia Mudavadi and Wetangula if those two politicians are paper tigers. Raila Odinga has done the same thing. He said that at some stage, I'm going to work with Musalia Mudavadi. There is no way Raila Odinga would be saying that I want to work with Musalia Mudavadi if Musalia Mudavadi is a paper tiger and he doesn't have votes. Now, if you give it an helicopter view, for William Samoei Ruto to become the next president of the Republic of Kenya, he must maintain the votes that Jubilee got last time as Ruto without losing one vote. If he loses one vote, then it means he's going to get about 30%. And if the Infotrack, the opinion polls released sometime December, if it's anything to go by, they got 33 and 32, meaning that he doesn't have the solid Jubilee vote in his pocket. The same thing applies to Raila Odinga. If Raila Odinga has to become the president of the Republic of Kenya, he has to maintain NASA as when he participated in the elections. If he wants to have a strong stab, then maybe he can now get a few votes from Mount Kenya. But when you get Kalonzo Musyoka bolting with about 10% of the votes, and Musalia and Wetangula bolting with about 12.5% of the votes, then you are losing a substantive vote, about 25%. And that's something which you cannot take for granted. That is the reason why we even had this coalition bill, because they want to see, is Musalia Mudavadi in fact going to run for president? Is Kalonzo Musyoka in fact going to run for president, so that they can start fixing the mathematics? And again, we must be alive to the fact that for you to become president in Kenya, 50% plus one. So if you've got a single politician who is going to compromise one vote, you will be in trouble. And you remember the presidential race in Kenya is determined by, the first race was about 16,000 votes. So if you come from a populous area in Nairobi with an MCA who can grab 50,000 from your pocket, then you are going to be in trouble. And then when you're talking about the demands from Western Kenya, the Western Kenyan politicians, all of them, times above number, have addressed the issue of Mumias, they've addressed the issue of sugarcane, and then we go back and ask ourselves, this is the question we've been asking ourselves times above number. The cost of production. We're supposed to address the cost of production in Kenya. For instance, we keep on asking, how come the cost of an egg in Kenya is much expensive than in Uganda? How come the people who live on Namanga go to Tanzania to go and fuel their cars and come back, or even go to have a beer? So we must address these issues and ask ourselves, among all these presidential candidates, who really understands these issues and who has got a solution? And then let's talk about the number of visits. William Samoei Ruto is a gentleman who has got a very solid national network, a solid grassroots mobilizer, and he jumps from one meeting to another. So when he does those 30 meetings, the number we've been given, and every single of that meeting is asking members of the Luhya Nation that, do you want Musalia and Wetangula to work with to work with Raila Odinga? I wanted to use these words, but I discovered that I may be stepping on somebody's toes. That means that Musalia Mudavadi has got something to offer. In my view, what Musalia Mudavadi needs to do is to dismantle what has been perpetuated in Kenya by a number of, even some of the panelists here, telling us that it's going to be a two-horse race. Who says it's going to be a two-horse race? Mura needs to be given a chance to participate in a race where there are even 40 horses that it takes a bet. And in my view this year, it's incumbent on people whose interests are aligned with our national interest and public interest to run away from this thing of a binary choice. Who says that everybody wants to vote for Raila or Ruto? There are people who want other candidates. What if Muisa Kitui or Dida, or what if I get some money today and I decide to run for president, shouldn't be given a chance?
Wakili Nyaribo, of course, I want you to come into this and in close, following in his footsteps, discussing the issue of whether or not Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula will be forced to actually pledge allegiance to either Raila Odinga or William Ruto. Do you think, given the kind of discussions we just had, that they may, and the earlier discussion about coalition formation, they may actually go ahead and become the third force, get a candidate of their own as a One Kenya Alliance?
Fred, there will be no third horse. There will be Raila Odinga and William Ruto contesting in the coming elections. We have only 6 months, hardly 7 months to the elections. And we must make this thing very clear. It is not important that we have a Bukusu, Tiriki, and Abaluya and all that. It is important that a certain community understands itself in the way other Kenyans understand them. We've seen during voting how, for example, the Kisii, Nyamira, they try to be 50% here, 50% or 49-50. It is not important what you do internally for your democratic rights. It is how do Kenyans see you. So how does Raila Odinga view the Mlembe Nation? He views the Mlembe Nation to be a grouping of same people who need their interests to be captured. Whether you come from Chavakali or Vihiga, and you must have in mind what are the people in Mumias, what do they want? What do Mumia Sugar Company want? What do people in other places want? But they are within Mlembe Nation. So if you ask me whether the OKA will be a serious impact and whether Musalia Mudavadi will be a serious impact, of course yes, within Vihiga or something like that. But in terms of national discourse, national voting in August, there will be two horse race, and the earlier all this Mlembe Nation realizes that, the better for everybody.
Wow, of course, the coalition formation now, the timelines in as far as forming coalitions looks like it's going to be determined pretty soon, and whether or not the OKA will form as one coalition as we approach the elections, we shall have to wait and see. Time now for us to take your comments, dear viewers. We'll take a break. When we come back, it's time to listen to you over the phones.